What's up, everybody, and welcome back finally to another episode of Exit Light. It's been a little bit. I can't remember the last time that we jumped behind the mics. It had to be sometime like March or maybe April. Definitely around the time that Megan Duffy became our new coach. But alas, finally we are back. It's me, ZDG, Colin Rudis, and Zach Ellis once again behind the mics, and we're excited to kind of bring you a cool little episode, kind of a wrap up of last season, all sports, and kind of a transition into what's coming up down the pipe for 2024, 2025. I know there's a lot of stuff that Hokie Nation is excited about as the fall sports season comes around, but it would be kind of remiss and kind of bad on our parts if we didn't take a second and look back on all of the good that happened in 23-24. Yeah, so quick little summer update. It's been a long time since we've recorded. I have to say it's probably like the beginning of April since I think basketball season ended. We talked a little bit about baseball, but we really hadn't, once things kind of got rough on that front, we kind of just stopped caring, I guess. That's probably bad for us to say. It's just, we didn't have a lot of time. At the same time, two of us are now working full-time jobs back here in Chesapeake, Virginia. Two of us are um, out in the world, different parts of North Carolina and South Carolina doing internships. It's just been kind of hard to find some time. But nonetheless, we're here, ready to go. Excited for what's to come. We've been uh, kind of trying to get back going, but here we are. So the concept for this episode is something that we call the Exit Light Awards. And it's just kind of an opportunity to look back, reflect on all the stuff, all the cool, the good, the bad, the funny stuff that happened last season, last sports season, last fall, last winter, last spring, um, and just kind of talk about it in like just kind of have that nostalgic like reminiscing period for us. So I will go ahead and start it off. If you guys are okay with that, and talk about our most electric moment. And I'm going to let you guys actually take the lead on this one because I have a couple, and I think I might get you guys with a surprising one. So go ahead, Ellis, with your most electric moment of 23-24.
First of all, great to be back behind the mics. It's been tough finding time here in Charleston, South Carolina, but we're back. We're ready. Most electric moment. This was a tough one. We got a big category of stuff to try and figure out. There's so many moments, so many sports, and I'd have to say that Duke women's basketball game. There was a moment there. We were back and forth with Coach Lawson over there on the bench, and there was one timeout, and we just come back, and the whole arena is probably the loudest I've ever heard it at any point up to that time. And Jackson, I remember, I think we talked about it. I just looked at you, I was like, oh my gosh, it is so loud in here. And so, so many other moments, but that one stood out to me with how loud Castle got. So, ZDG, what you got?
So all the way here from Asheville, North Carolina. If you don't know where Asheville, North Carolina is, I do not blame you. There's not exactly much out here, but that's where I'm kind of at, not too far from Ellis. I think overall, my most electric moment is it's probably going to be senior night for women's basketball, and they played UNC, and Enter Sandman started because I don't I don't think I've ever been in a louder indoor atmosphere than when everybody in a sold out stadium was just singing Enter Sandman. And I don't even know why UNC even bothered showing up because they already knew they were about to get the work.
They
So
really didn't show up.
yeah, they really didn't show up. But that was my most electric personally.
So first, I got to start off. Jackson said full time in Chesapeake. I am no longer in Chesapeake. I'm now in Moyock, North Carolina. So, don't mind my background. I got a little bit of organized chaos going on back there because we just moved last week and had a little bit of internet issues trying to get recorded tonight. But most electric moment. I think going back to football here, Bashal Tootin running back the kickoff against UVA right after they finally scored. And we're front row on the hill in UVA's student section, and it's all maroon and orange, and he runs the kickoff back right at us, and the place was probably the loudest it had been all year, and it's all the Tech fans just going wild.
Yeah, and can we talk about how iconic that picture was too? You got him running into the crowd. You got the UVA kids flipping him off. It's just such an iconic picture. Really recap that game.
Yeah, so I actually I was getting into it with a couple UVA, I guess you'd call them fans. They were I couldn't tell if they were students or what, but they were chirping me and Colin and and Jerry and everybody that was in that group at the time, and they were like, I mean, I guess they weren't completely being serious because it was they were down 31-3, but they were being like objectively very annoying. And I remember just kind of like ignoring them because it was like to the point where like I think if I said something, it was potentially going to escalate. And then Bashal ran the kickoff back, and I looked at him and just told him to shut up, for better words. And I don't know if I saw those kids again. I'm pretty sure they disappeared right after that. These kids were like shoving my sister around and stuff. They were being like really like physical in the student section, and so like it was just fun. The usher that was standing in front, the security guy that was standing in front was like yelling at them because they were being like really just ignorant people. And just to see too and return that and kind of just be all up in our faces. I agree with Colin. That's absolutely one that was on my list. I know ZDG, you wanted to say something too.
Well, so to Rudy's point, that was definitely like up there. And I think one of the funnier parts was when we were standing there. I think they had just gotten like, I don't know, like a field goal or a decent drive or maybe like their first touchdown. And the kid that was chirping Robert Cunningham behind us, he was like, all right, let's do that again. Let's get another stop here. And then Tootin runs it right back right after he says that. That was great.
Also, going back to the fan interactions we had that game, shout out to I can't remember if it was one or two girls, but she came up there like 10 minutes into the game and tried to pull us out of the way. This is UVA's area or whatever she said. And once again, don't think we ever saw her again. There was probably a good 10 or 15 people throughout that game that stood behind us that just were gone.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
It was funny. It was like a revolving door of just people around us for some reason. We had like the 6 or 7 of us that were in that group that were standing like 10 toes down right in the front, chilling with our usher friend that we made. I remember I don't know if you guys know like Jackson Didlick and like Chris Hirons and everybody, but they were down to our right. And so I was just like I was like looking at them all game because it was so funny. But Colin talks about the girl that came down to us. She pushed me forwards, and I ended up like hitting Colin, and I think she went in between me and Colin just like kind of like flung her to the front. And the best part about it was the usher took a step at her because the usher thought that she was like storming the field, which I mean, foreshadowing, but it was really funny. I'm gonna go ahead and give my most electric moment, and I have a couple written down. I'm gonna save a couple because they kind of lead into other things that we will definitely talk about. But my most electric moment for the entire season has to be when Clara Strack hit the 3 against Marshall in the tournament game. Part of that is because I think that we were all together for the most part in the front row. It was a tournament game. Our expectations really were kind of non-existent because we didn't know how everything was going to shake out with just like the status of the program, and there was a lot of like unknowns going on. And we kind of, I would say that we would all agree that we were on upset alert playing Marshall. We thought their press was going to be an issue. It wasn't. We destroyed them. We won by like 90. But when Clara hit the 3, it was like, yeah, we are still good enough to be great. I thought that was it was a really crazy moment. She hit the 3, and she it was like one of those like hesitation moments where like she hesitated and they like did not step to guard her, and she's like F it, we ball. Green, and put that in. And I don't know, that my favorite part was like kind of just like hugging Isaac and my sister and just like going crazy there. That was just nuts. And that moment just carried into the halftime, and it was just an absolutely nutty moment in terms of electricity. There's a bunch of things that we didn't talk about, and we'll definitely hit on, but definitely a lot of electric moments. A lot of moments that we got to experience together this past season. We only have one like um, negative moment to recap, and we're just gonna call this like the worst moment, the lowest low. There aren't. I would say that we were fortunate to have a lot of fun things happen, and we had a lot of really good memories. I know that the thing that I want to say is going to be said by a lot of you guys. I'm going to go ahead and just say that the worst thing that happened to us in terms of me being upset, other than the thing that I know you guys are going to say, is Kenny Brooks leaving. Um, that kind of put a damper on the whole season. If I don't think if he left, it would feel as empty as it did. But losing Kenny definitely sucked. I've kind of gotten past the point of being mad. I understand people have to make the moves for themselves. I think objectively, we will end up better than we did with Coach Duffy and the way that she coaches defensively. I think we're going to be in a really good spot, especially moving forward as we keep recruiting. But alas, losing Kenny and and also just like the what was coming next. Like I thought there was like we were set up to be really good post Liz, post Georgia, and just not having that exist anymore really sucks. But I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to Rudis because I know you're probably gonna say what's on everybody's mind. So
I don't know if it's exactly what everybody's thinking, but what pops into my head is going to the UVA women's game and losing that. That that sucked because there was people around us talking crap all game, and you just wanted Tech to pull away, and they just never did. And they just, I don't know what it was, but they just couldn't get going. And obviously, you know, Liz getting hurt, that wasn't fun in that game. But yeah, that game sucked.
Yeah, that's what my point was going to be. I was sitting down in Tybee Island on spring break, watching the game on my phone. I see Liz go up for that layup. The way she landed, the reactions. We all knew what happened. But I feel like on top of that, and then we lost the game to our rival. You can't top that as a bad moment. You know, obviously Georgia leaving, Kenny leaving, all that, but we got turned around. Future's gonna be bright, but obviously Liz going down. Kind of felt like the season was over there at a point because we had so much like potential to go far. We were ready to go to Final Four again, and that just put the damper on it. We couldn't recover.
Well, I think you guys definitely know. I think that, my first thought was definitely that, but I think what I'll go on to kind of differ away from you guys is probably the Hokies football loss to Purdue. Um, I think that given the fact that, we do what we always did pregame, we showed up and, we got our seats. We tried staying as long as we could when it rained. We ran away from the rain and all the storms. We struggled getting the tents in the car. We got to Jackson soaking wet. And then, we go all the way back. We were the first ones in line. We were the first ones back in the stadium. We gave them all of our energy. They hyped Sandman again. We gave them everything. Everybody finally showed up in the fourth quarter. And then Grant Wells was Grant Wells. And I think that was just that was probably one of the top daggers I could probably list this year. So I'm sticking with that one because that one really freaking hurt considering how much fun we had.
Yeah, let me say something real quick, Jackson. On top of that, Ollie went down in that game, and that he had so much hype. He scored 2 touchdowns against ODU. Breaking his ankle there, that hurt. I think a very underrated worst moment is choosing Grant over Kyron starting quarterback. Definitely definitely screwed up football season.
You're the one who painted your chest to support Grant, dude. We showed up to the first game of the
That's
season. You had "Let Grant Cook" written all over your chest, big dog.
Hey, he cooked that one
I
day.
will post the pictures on the Instagram right now.
Oh, I got plenty of them.
Okay.
Like Grant Cook.
Yeah.
It's just
Hey Jackson, let's go ahead.
Look.
Let's go ahead.
If you're gonna be 10 toes, then be 10 toes now. And please
go ahead and
never
get that
paint your
clip.
chest again.
Get that
Please
clip
never
on the
paint your
Instagram
chest again. It's just bad luck.
with that picture.
Alright, so honestly, you know it's funny, ZDG. You said the Purdue thunderstorm, and I actually have that on my list. Just because it wasn't like I won't look back on it and say it was a bad day because I had a lot of fun that day with the things that we did. Like it was just so like it was like unnaturally fun because of the things that we did besides the fact that we got poured on. It's just that we ended it with a loss and it sucked. But we did have a lot of fun that day with the I mean, our tailgate was fun. It was a noon game, so it was like one of those Chick-fil-A mornings. And Colin, we talk about this a lot, but we walked in that stadium and it was like picture perfect blue.
Oh yeah.
The pictures that we have are like really good. Like we had sunglasses on, it was hot. And then all of a sudden the thunderstorm came out of nowhere. And it came from behind us. So we didn't see it at all until it was like there. And none of us were gonna leave until that first lightning strike hit.
They went into the weather delay
Yeah,
and the sky was still blue.
exactly. It was weird.
And we're like, they start clearing the field, and we're just, what's going on? Like, there's no storm, so nobody left. And then all of a sudden the sky just opened.
Well, I remember when I think it was. I want to say it was one of. I'm blanking right now. It was one of the guys there with us and Rudy, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's gonna come and like storm at us." And I was like, "That ain't coming." And like 2 minutes later, yeah, man, it was just going.
all right. The next thing we got the biggest win of the season. You know, there was a lot of choices. We got the UVA win. We got a bunch of women's basketball memories. But I think the biggest one, when you take into account of what it leads to, is that bowl game win against Tulane. We got to see all the younger guys. We got to see the run game kick butt. Got to see Aiden Green pop off. You got to see the O-line dominate. And I really think that showed what the future is going to be for this season of football. So I think that was a huge one that kind of goes underrated. ZDG, I'll let you take this next one.
Yeah, that was definitely my first thought there, and we'll definitely get into that as we get more into the episode and futures. But I think probably if I had to choose, I think it could be a combination of kind of it was the same opponent. I think those two wins against NC State and women's basketball were really big. Obviously, you had the narrative going to that point that they couldn't beat the top ranked teams and everything else. And I think that first win at home was one of the needed to just grind out, and they got it. And then the second one, obviously at NC State, was the nail in the coffin of okay, we can go on the road, can win these big games against the best team in the ACC, and they really showed that for that portion of the year, and I thought that was really big for them.
All right, so just to add on to what Ellis was saying about the Tulane game, it's really funny to me because Daquan Wright, he said he was transferring, and then in that game, I think in the pouring rain, I want to say Tech had 3 touchdowns to tight ends, something like that. They had, I think, 3 different tight ends scored right after he transferred. So I just thought that was funny. But biggest win, I was gonna say NC State women's basketball, but I think I'll go with the women's game at UNC. The overtime win, that was a fun game. We were all there. We had a massive group of like 15, 20 of us. And once again, we took over their student section, whatever you want to call it. But that was a fun one just because of them going to overtime, and you thought it was going to be close, and then Tech just smoked them in OT. And that was just fun, great environment, and that was a fun one.
Yeah, low key, y'all took basically everything that I was gonna say. I was gonna say one of the two NC State games because I'm the only person that was at both of them. I was gonna go to the Tulane game, but Ellis, I didn't think you were gonna start off with that, but you did. And then my third choice, I only wrote 3 for each one. My third choice was the UNC game at UNC. So I'm gonna pull this one out, and I know we've talked a little bit about this, but one thing we haven't hit on, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the game that we won at UVA in football. Not only was it like an absolute domination of UVA, it was also for bowl eligibility, and that's one thing we haven't talked about yet. And I don't think people actually mention a lot because we ended up winning the bowl game against Tulane, so we had a pretty strong. We had a very strong end of the season, and it's kind of like we don't really talk about the loss to NC State very much. But that game was big for us, I will be quite honest with you. I was a little bit nervous going into Charlottesville because I was like, wow, they kind of in recent years have kind of played us tough. The games have been a little closer than they should have been. Obviously we lost in 1921. They should have beat us in 21. We didn't play in 22. But I was nervous, and then it ended up just being an absolute domination. I think it was 24 points, like halfway through the second quarter, up 24-0. That's crazy. That's the absolute like biggest middle finger I've ever seen to another team in my life. And I'm glad we were all there, like front row for it. It was sick. I'm gonna go ahead and switch it to biggest surprise moment. And before you guys can steal everything from me this time, I'm gonna take biggest surprise moment, and I'm gonna go ahead and lock my answer in as the UVA game against Inman's basketball, beating them on President's Day. Um, me and Colin had a hell of a weekend that weekend. We spent the entire weekend in the Outer Banks, hanging out with some firefighter friends, staying on the beach, drinking, just absolute dehydrated. We drove up late Sunday, because we thought we were going to watch the Daytona 500. That got rained out. We ended up driving to Blacksburg. We watched the Louisville game in women's basketball on our phones driving there. And we're like, I can't believe we're going to actually drive all the way up to Blacksburg just to watch Virginia Tech lose to UVA and then have to leave Blacksburg and drive home that night. And I remember the energy was like, it was good, but it was not a UVA energy like in years prior. It definitely wasn't the year before when we stormed the court. And all of a sudden, I remember, it was kind of like 2 points, 2 points, 2 points, and then all of a sudden, UVA just shut off. Tech went on like a 24-point run, and it was like, what the hell happened? Like, where did this come from? And it was just an absolute. It was what we say, just like football. And just absolutely took it to him. And then me and Colin did a 5-hour drive home and got to work the next morning in Chesapeake / Portsmouth. Still made it. I remember listening to Colin. I don't even remember this, but I pulled up to your house like blasting that stupid song by Bad Baby. Do you remember that? I had the music all the way up because I was trying to stay awake. I was so tired. Still got to work the next morning. That was the biggest surprise. That was a lot of fun. Y'all are next. I'm sorry I took all y'all's.
I'm going to go with, so I have a couple ones very quick here. The first biggest surprise, Florida State wearing blue jerseys. Why? Why are you going to wear blue? But my real biggest surprise, I would have to say the breakout of Kyron Jones. When I saw that he committed to Tech, I immediately looked up highlights and stuff from him from Baylor, and I'm not gonna lie, they weren't super impressive. He looked like he was very one-dimensional in that he could only run the ball. His arm didn't look very impressive there, but then once he finally got the rock at Tech, he didn't look back. He said he was not allowing Grant Wells to cook anymore. It was now the Kyron Jones show.
Yeah, Colin, I think you have a great point there. I remember watching the same like 8 clips that he had at Baylor when they were up a decent amount. And then I remember we watched the spring game with him, and obviously because he was with all the backups, that didn't help him out. But there were a few passes that, I remember kind of watching that you kind of look back and you think maybe he should make these in a spring game, but that was definitely huge for the season last year. I think personally, I won't say I was entirely surprised by this because I was reading some of the stuff over the summer about him last year. But in terms of the numbers he actually put up and the broken tackles, I think you got to go with Bashal Tootin, coming from North Carolina A&T, and he just, I mean, how many people does it take to tackle him on average? Like maybe 2, 3, maybe sometimes 4 if he really gets in there. I mean, dude is a dog. I mean, I definitely knew that he was going to be good, but the stuff that he provided and the chances that he gave us on offense and the domination he showed, like that was just awesome to watch. So I got to give it to him.
Yeah, it's nice how you mentioned the transfer in football. I didn't even like think about that when I was thinking surprise. All our receivers were pretty much transfers too, and they all balled out. Now they have so much hype as one of the top receiving rooms in the country. So that's a good one, ZG. Use your brain there. I like it. But
That's
for
a
me,
first.
exactly. Jackson, I'm with you. Biggest surprise was definitely that men's game against UVA. I remember getting on the bus that morning, and I think we were favored. I was like, what does Vegas know? Why are we favored? We haven't played well at all. Like, there's no reason we should be favored in this game. Going in there, I'm like, all right, let's go get beat. Let's just have fun type thing. And we smoked them. And it was very surprising because they didn't play like that the rest of the year. So I don't know what happened, but I'm gonna swing this now to our next award for the game of the year. Colin, I'm gonna have you start this one. What you got?
Yeah, we've already spoken plenty about it, but I gotta go football at UVA just because it's you're going in obviously expecting a win because they're the little brother. Tech's always better, but to do what they did in their stadium, it was nuts. And it's Jackson already said it, 24-0 in the second quarter. It's just like we're looking at each other like, what's going on? And we're standing there in the third quarter because obviously we're gonna rush the field, but we're standing there in the third quarter like this is borderline boring, just because it's just score after score after score, and there's no competition. It's basically just practice for Tech, and they're just whooping them. So I got to put that as game of the year just because that's like the fun that we had there, the little bit of talking crap to the few UVA fans that there were.
It wasn't a
That
little
was
bit.
fun.
I'm gonna be honest. It wasn't a little
Yeah,
bit.
it
I
was a
did my
little
fair
bit.
share of talking shit.
But
I
I
think
do
my
have.
arm got tired of pointing at the scoreboard because I did that a lot to everyone I talked to. I said, "What's that
And
score?"
I had one favorite thing from that game, and it has nothing to do with the game at all. There was a point, I think it was in the third quarter, where like we said earlier, we're standing front row, and you just turn around, and it's literally all maroon and orange on the hill. And we were just like, where did all the UVA fans go? And it literally straight up just maroon and orange.
Yeah, and I think to your point there, Rudy, I remember somebody behind them going, some dude who's obviously, supporter of UVA, they don't have fans, they just have, viewers. He had said that oh, well, all these Tech fans out here, they must not tailgate. They're here so early. They go to football games so early. But I don't really think it really matters when you have thousands of Tech people opposed to 10 viewers who are just there to get points towards their basketball lottery system. So fair enough, but I'll use that to kind of transition into my game of the year, and I think this is going to kind of, without going too much into it, I think it's got to be the bowl game against Tulane that everybody won because a big thing that everybody wanted, obviously you wanted improvement with Brent Pry. He gave you improvement. You wanted recruiting back with Brent Pry. You got the state of Virginia back. You wanted, everybody said, oh, I want a bowl game and I want to win the bowl game. You got a bowl game and then you got a dominant victory. You got an absolute dominant victory of defense, offense, special teams, as Rudy said, the tight ends. Wright leaves and there's 3 tight end touchdowns. I mean, and then as soon as we leave that game, Twitter, everything's blowing up with, you guys better look out for the Hokies next year. This team is going to be insane. And, I don't remember exactly if it was before, I think it was after that actually. You had, we soon got Anais Peebles and then everybody else started transferring in. So it really just kind of, led into next year. And I think that establishing just a dominant victory there really kind of brought everybody back to, don't forget what we used to be. We just had a bad few year stint with an F word, who was overseeing this program, and that's gone.
All right, my game of the year. I'm actually surprised y'all talked about it. I didn't think it was one that really got thought of much. But mine was that women's basketball game against NC State at home, where that kind of gets forgotten about, that pass from Kayla to Liz for the buzzer beater, or not buzzer beater, but essentially was. There was so much that went on in that game. We were down a decent amount of it, and Karis Baker really emerged in that game with her defense. C Dub, she was out there balling, and that off ball screen from Georgia, that gets overlooked a lot because without that, I mean, Liz is tall, but she doesn't have that look that she got. So the back and forth game, essential buzzer beater against NC State. That watching on TV was electric. So Jackson, I know you being there, I can't imagine how fun that game was.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say that, and that's mostly because that was the one that I was at, and you guys you guys got invited. I tried to get you guys to come with me, but y'all are fake fans. But nonetheless, that game was crazy. You talked a little bit just about it just a second ago, but the Hokies used the same 5 girls for basically the entire second half. Basically, it was Georgia, Liz, Kayla, C Dub, and Karis Baker. They kind of went with a small lineup, and it turned a game where NC State dominated into a fourth quarter where Virginia Tech just absolutely took it to them defensively. They It really kind of paved the way for the amount of success that Virginia Tech could have last season, just by dominating on the glass and playing tough defense, and that was really our keys to the game. Every time we'd have a big game, we talked about it a lot. Um, Liz Kitley makes Kayla really did it. Kayla and Georgia with the pass and the screen, and Liz all Liz has to do is hit a layup. But caps off what I thought was the game of the year, but because I have to make a choice, I'm gonna actually say the NC State game on the road. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember this, but River Baldwin was hurt. Before that game, she played that game, but she was kind of like a step slow. I don't think she played a lot of that game because she was kind of just coming back from the injury. And I remember all the NC State fans were just annoyed because they're like, "Yeah, if River plays this game, we beat Virginia Tech by 20." And I'm like, "Okay, guess what? She didn't. Get over it." But we'll see. We'll see you in February, and we'll get to do it again, right? And you'll get to find out. So we go up to Raleigh. I made a late decision. I found a pretty cheap ticket for like $34 to sit on the baseline. I've never been to Reynolds. I show up to the game, and it's a back and forth affair until that one play where Virginia Tech got three or four chances to bank a three, and Kayla hits a three after I think it was like third chance three, bangs it, takes the lead. They never looked back. There's so many sick highlights from that game. They just absolutely took it to them in the second half. They played Virginia Tech basketball. That was the moment that we realized that Virginia Tech had the ability to go win a national championship. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for reasons that we've talked about. But that was the game of the year for me, just because it was like Reynolds was electric that night. It was the coolest road environment I've ever been to, other than maybe Tennessee football. But it was absolutely just nuts. And Virginia Tech went out and won. And it wasn't like mean fans. Like NC State fans are the absolute best. It was such a good night. I drove home from Raleigh back to Chesapeake and worked that next morning, but I was not tired. I was so excited. That's my game of the year. There's more that we could have talked about, but nonetheless, we're going to move on to a category that I don't think has many possible answers. I can only think of 3 off the top of my head. But Hokie of the year, Zach Ellis, you get this one.
I mean, I think there's really a couple main choices, but some like underrated ones to like talk about. You had Emma Ritter finishing her senior season at softball, and she hit like 430, something insane. Corey McMillan with 20 something homers, Michelle Chatfield breaking the freshman home run record. It was like some underrated ones for softball. And you got to think the top two. It's Liz and Kyron. I'm gonna go Kyron just for the fact that without football, it's really hard to get money for a school and athletic wise. And with him potentially bringing our program back, I feel like because of that, we can get money for more sports. So for me, I'm going Kyron. Colin, what you got?
You know, I could I could take the easy road here and say Liz because realistically she is, but I'm gonna go with somebody here who y'all will probably be surprised. And I was thinking Kyron too, but to base off of Kyron, I want to say DeQuan Felton because he came in from a small school, FCS school, Norfolk State, and he was the guy that had to step up and fill the shoes of Ollie Jennings, and he did that. Like he turned out to be a stud, and looking ahead a little bit, Tech's got a problem at wide receiver, and it's the best problem you could have because they have three three receivers that are all three good enough to go play at the next level, and there's not going to be enough plays to get them all the ball enough. But yeah, I think DeQuan just because he filled the shoes of Ollie and he was a stud.
Yeah, I don't think it's talked about just how important the wide receivers were in general. Um, Jalen Lane had a great season. Gosnell was absolutely clutch when he needed to be. Daquan Wright had a really good season when he needed to be to be good. Tucker Holloway was tough, but really we talk about Felton and just how much his over the top big play threat really changed the trajectory for Virginia Tech football and just the offense in general. We can talk all about how Kyron really put a just a different level of just a different just a level of gameness for the team. He could run the ball. They had to worry about that. Um, you could see the offensive line really came into their shell. Near the end of the season. But you talk about Felton. I mean, I remember Pittsburgh. He had was it Pittsburgh? He had a touchdown pass over the top early. I know he had one against Syracuse. The iconic drone strike clip was him. But he was absolutely just clowning some dudes against UVA. And so he wasn't on my list, but now that Colin said it, I think it's absolutely just crucial to make that point that he was just one of the few sets of hands that really made a difference for football. And like Ella said, that's a huge thing that you have to have football, you have to be good at football, and you have to turn heads in order to get money. You talk about realignment, you have to get people to be paying attention to your brand to get into the next door, right? Um, yeah, it's special. Go ahead, CDG.
Yeah, I think you guys had solid points. I would love to, just keep talking and talking about the wide receiver room and the whole offense as a whole, actually, because, I know that there's just so much that they're going to do this year. I'm sure we'll get into that in the future, but I think I'm going to have to give my Hokie to the year to somebody who definitely deserves his flowers for everything he accomplished this year. May not watch it all the time, but I caught a couple of matches in Castle, and then, of course, the iconic one that Caleb Henson won his national championship on TV. I think that you gotta give him some respect because he's the only other Hokie wrestler to win a national championship, and that's definitely a map that we want to be on for those sports and all that. So I think that and he's only a sophomore too, so you gotta give it to him as well. So he did really well. And I think that the future's bright for wrestling as a whole as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take. Well, I'm not gonna take the easy way out. I am gonna touch on the easy way out because it would not be fair if we go through this whole segment without talking about Liz Kitley. 3-time ACC Player of the Year. She's leading us to another Final Four if she doesn't tear her ACL. the weight of the world gets put on her shoulders after she goes down, because it seems like I mean, truthfully, it's truthful, but she had a lot of the guilt put on her shoulders because of her injury. But the absolute best to ever do it, we found out at spring game that her number is going into the rafters. She is and will forever always be one of the top 4 Virginia Tech players in any sport of all time. She is on the Mount Rushmore. She is the best Virginia Tech women's basketball player of all time. She's top 5 ACC player of all time. The list goes on and on. She could probably be the Hokie of the Year for the next 10. That's how good she was. We are absolute blessed that we got to watch Liz Kitley be Liz Kitley while the time that we were students. But because that is the easy answer, and it kind of makes kind of a mockery of the category in itself, I want to go ahead and make my nomination for Brent Pry, for absolutely being the man that has brought Virginia Tech football back to the forefront. I cannot remember a time that we are this excited about football. I mean, honestly, for me, maybe Colin, it might have been like, remember like 2017 after ECU, and we were about to play Clemson. I don't think I've ever been excited for football. I don't think I've been this excited about football since that point. Maybe a little bit after we beat Florida State in 2018. But I'm so excited for this season. Man, I know Florida State got you excited. Um, uh, it's special. Brent Pry has gotten the uniforms right. He's gotten the teams right. We were bringing talent in. He's absolutely killing it recruiting wise in Virginia. We're gonna talk all about this coming up here in another episode. But Brent Pry, Coach Pry, killing it with the community as well. Just absolutely being like a just a amazing person that you want to see lead your football team and lead your university. That's a huge thing. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about Liz all day, but Coach Pry deserves his flowers for sure. We're gonna go ahead and switch it to our last award category, and this is the fun one because we get to talk about the cool things that we got to experience together. Best memory of the 2023 season, not just sports, but just your favorite memory, just at Virginia Tech. I mean, it is sports, but at Virginia Tech in general.
Well, I'd like to. This one wasn't exactly at Virginia Tech, but I have to give it to storming our other home field in a certain area with all of you guys. I think that's definitely something that I wish I could do every single day. And I think one of the best parts about it was when Jackson turned to a kid at that game and he said that there was no hard feelings towards the jokes he was giving him, but respectfully, what is the best way to rush your field? And I think that is one of my favorite things. And me and our pal Lucas getting a picture with Kyron Drones, that was definitely pretty awesome. And watching the players rip the turf out of the field and put it into the lunch pail after the game was something that was really, really cool. And then they tried turning on the sprinklers after, and that didn't stop the team from getting a nice picture. So that was pretty awesome. I think that's probably my favorite. I just don't remember having a better time this year than at that game. I just think it was so awesome.
Yeah, I'll go next. There's a couple underrated ones that we think about, we enjoy. I know Jackson and Colin at the softball game against Boston College with that girl getting burned that just completely turned that game. Very underrated one that was very fun was our baseball game against Rhode Island, where Big Mike was catching, and we're all sitting behind home plate, and we don't stop chirping that whole game. Mike can't catch, can't hit. It was
Grad
a
student.
great game. He was a grad student.
Grad student.
Trash. He shouldn't even be at Rhode Island. He should be down in D3, something like that. But I'll transition, be realistic. Kind of surprised we haven't touched on it more. I feel like a lot of us were kind of saving it for this. But it's that UNC game. We have game day. First time ever in women's basketball getting game day there. Also senior night. So, outside, filming in the morning. We got the game day crew, Jello shots. That part was fun. And just being in Castle, the environment, I think the biggest part about it was during Inner Sandman when we were passing that GoPro down. And it got posted on Sons of Saturday. You get to see all of our perspectives during Sandman at that game. And that part was so cool. Definitely one of the best memories at Tech in general, not just this year.
Out of all the memories that we could have picked, Ellis said both of the ones that were on my mind. I cannot believe that you brought up Mike and Rhode Island. But as much as the game sucked against Purdue, that was just like a ultimately really fun day. Just because it was my brother's first time at a Tech game in Blacksburg, and getting up, tailgating, having to basically sprint out of lane because it's just downpouring. Lightning's just cracking as we're trying to run to the car. We're trying to pack the tent up. It starts hailing. It sounds like it
That
sucks,
tent's
but it's
now
actually
gone. That tent's broken.
yeah, the tent's now broken because of the wind. Um, it sounds bad, but it was pretty fun.
They're good memories.
Yeah, great memories. Just we do so much throughout the year for sporting events that it's hard to pinpoint one singular moment.
Going back to that Rhode Island game, I remember after the game, we walk out and we look to our left and we see Rhode Island's bus over there. And so, being the guys we are, we say, let's go get a picture in front of that bus. So, I don't know how well we can see it here, but got Rhode Island's bus, and we're all just, throwing thumbs down. We really wish that Big Mike was there. We could have flicked up with him.
Sorry, I did not think that was a thumb. I forgot we did thumbs down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we gave him that. But going back, Jackson, I'll let you say yours now.
It's actually funny. I was gonna just, as the person who came up with the idea to do all this, I was just gonna take my opportunity to say a couple. The number one for me, most fun thing that we did together, I have to say it's going to North Carolina, to do the road game and to take that over. Colin said that they were 15 to 20. I disagree. I think we might have been up close to 40. I think we were over 30 for sure. Granted, a lot of these people there was a bunch of people that showed up that we really weren't sure that they were coming, but the group expanded fast. That group chat still exists now. There were a bunch of, it was like honestly my first realization that the group that we have an impact on, our friend group in terms of Virginia Tech basketball, is a lot bigger than we thought. That was the most fun I think I've ever had at a basketball game in general. Up until maybe, I guess, College Game Day was kind of top that, and honestly the Marshall game. And anyways, we've had a lot of fun. The big thing for me is that it was all five of us and Lucas and my sister. It was everybody. We really brought the entire squad, and we had a lot of fun. And we tailgated before that, and I mean, I brought a lot of Jello shots to that game too. We did a lot of those in the parking lot on top of a parking deck. It was cold, but it wasn't too cold. Isaac, you flew in from Wisconsin for a single Saturday game. You broke your ankle that day. Yeah, it was a day full of memories. The pictures, and then I don't know if you guys remember, like, the UNC fans telling us that we were just awesome because we were doing it politely, right? Like, there was we weren't throwing stuff, we weren't cussing, we weren't being ignorant. The UNC cheerleaders were right in front of us chanting one thing, and we were doing the exact opposite. And and just like, and you listen to that game and you hear us, and we're going crazy. And Coach Brooks really just acknowledged our presence, and we were there. And there's a bunch of really cool videos from that day. Another one that I wanted to mention, just like on a personal level, was the Duke women's basketball game that Ellis talked about earlier. I made a late decision. I bought a ticket for that game early because I had a feeling it was going to sell out. And the second that it announced that it was going to sell out, I took Friday off and decided I was going to drive up to Blacksburg for that weekend. Actually, Colin, it's interesting. That was the weekend we went to the beach. I believe that was the same weekend that we went because that was the I think I drove to Blacksburg Thursday. We went home. We went to the beach, and I think we went back on Sunday night. And we played golf Monday morning, then to the UVA. But I just remember getting there kind of right before tip off, and just like and getting to see all of you guys, and just how excited you guys were that we were all together for that game. And that was the first game that we had the sunglasses for, because I brought some for my sister and I for myself, and we were just the blackout, and just Georgia hit the three at the end of the game. That place went nuts. So it was just such a good time. Yeah, I mean, truthfully, we talk about a lot how lucky we are to be able to just have a group to enjoy all of these things with. Because truthfully, like, even though I'm not a student anymore, I enjoy going to games more now with you guys than I did for the most part in college by myself. Granted, there are times that I wish I had a lot of my friends from my time as an undergrad transition to this time, but we've had a lot of fun, done a lot of funny stuff. We got kicked out of a baseball game for the first time ever. We were on the road a good amount of times. We went to the ACC tournament and watched like 6 different games. We were absolutely chirping FSU's band. We chirped Notre Dame's band. We learned about Ellis's heritage and his love for FSU's fight song. It's been a really, really fun season of sports.
We learned that ZDG absolutely loves blue jerseys,
and that you can have turnovers in baseball,
and that what's the word I said?
Introducted.
That's a new word.
And before we switch to the next topic, could we maybe go back to that MJ jumper real fast? Word. Yeah, and so that's basically to tie it all up in a bow, is that we've had a lot of fun this season. Sports. I've said it before. Sports are sports. The highs, the lows. Sports gives. Sports takes. It's why we enjoy it so much. We get to have so much fun. The best part about it is the friends that you make. We're the luckiest people in the world because we get to enjoy it with a bunch of idiots like us. Coming up next, football season's right around the corner. It's mid-July. I can't imagine that the excitement's going to go down anytime soon. So we're definitely going to be talking a lot about football season coming up here shortly. I can only imagine that once we get to 50 subscribers on YouTube that we're going to do a couple live recordings. I'd really like to do that. That's a big goal for us, is to set up a little studio here in my house, put the mic in front of us, and just kind of talk and maybe drink a couple beers and just have some fun. Not you, ZDG, you're not 21. Get too small. And so I think we're going to try to record here the next week again, talk a little bit about football, just about the stuff that you talked about. I was thinking about talking about uniforms this time, but I think we'll save it for next time just because we're running a little bit long. But a lot of fun things to talk about in terms of things that are excited. The one thing that I do want to talk a little bit about is just our college football 25 league that we're trying to start. We got 32 people. We're actually at 31 right now. We're trying to fill one more spot. We got 31 people filled up into a college football 25 league. Isaac, who produces, he does all the magic behind the scenes. We spent about 4.5, 5 hours on a Discord call making a schedule. It was absolutely insane. We used ChatGPT. It didn't work. We used a couple different softwares that helped us out. It's going to be sick. We have schedules worked out, rivalry weeks, conferences, divisions, a playoff format. We have a bunch of stuff set up. We're still working on the Discord. We're going to use our Instagram and we're going to use our YouTube to highlight a little bit of that content. I can only imagine it's going to be some of the most fun stuff we've ever done on a video game platform. We're going to I can't imagine Ole Miss is anything better than 1-10. We're going to even give ZDG an extra game just to hopefully let him make up the gap, but he's going to lose that one too. But nonetheless, we're excited. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming up here shortly. More episodes, more content. You'll see the Instagram start to pop up a little bit. School's right around the corner for the two smart kids in the chat. And I can only imagine, because they're up there in Blacksburg, that Colin and I will be there as much as we possibly can. So those 5-hour drives are coming up soon.
That
So,
was very nice of you calling this kid smart.
oh, I thought you were talking about you. That's crazy. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. We're sorry it's been such a long time. We hope that you enjoyed us kind of reminiscing on the good and the bad. But nonetheless, we'll see you guys here shortly. Subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. We're only a couple subscribers away from unlocking a bunch of cool things. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. We're trying to get the Twitter going. ZDG's on Twitter. A bunch of cool stuff. But nonetheless, we will see you next time, and thank you for watching.